You push, you fight, you plan every step down to the smallest detail, yet nothing seems to work. The more you force it, the more resistance you meet. Maybe it's a business deal that should have taken off, but no matter how hard you tried, it crumbled. Or a relationship you held on to so tightly that, in the end, it slipped right through your fingers. Or perhaps it's the endless pursuit of success, grinding, hustling, controlling, only to feel exhausted, frustrated, and stuck. Sounds familiar? That's because life doesn't reward force, it rewards flow. Ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus understood this truth well. They lived by a principle that's as powerful today as it was centuries ago. Stop resisting what is. Accept, adapt, and move with life, not against it. But how do you do that? How do you stop forcing and start allowing things to unfold naturally without giving up on your goals? This video will reveal 8 powerful Stoic lessons that will change how you approach success, relationships, and personal growth. Lessons that will help you find inner peace, clarity, and strength without the unnecessary struggle. And here's the best part. Once you master this, you'll realize that letting go doesn't mean losing. It means gaining everything that was meant for you. So, stay with me until the end, and let's unlock the power of flow together. 1. Flowing with life. You push forward, determined to make things happen. You set deadlines, map out every step, and hold on tight to your vision of success. But despite all your efforts, something isn't clicking. You face setback after setback. The deal doesn't go through. The relationship crumbles. The harder you try, the further the goalpost seems to move. And then frustration sets in. Why isn't this working? You double down. More effort, more control. You try to bend circumstances to your will, only to find yourself exhausted and nowhere closer to what you want. It feels like swimming against the current. No matter how strong you are, the tide always wins. The problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough. The problem is that you're fighting life instead of flowing with it. A young warrior once stood at the shore, his pride swelling as he watched the waves crash. He believed he could master anything, even the sea. When the first wave came, he stood his ground, muscles tense trying to block its force. Within seconds, he was knocked flat onto the sand, salt water burning his eyes. But he refused to yield. Again, he stood. Again, he fought. And again, the waves won. An old fisherman nearby had been watching. As the warrior pulled himself up once more, the old man finally spoke. "You cannot fight the ocean," he said, "but you can learn to ride the wave." For the first time, the warrior let go of resistance. When the next wave came, he moved with it, allowing the current to lift him rather than crush him. He stopped battling the sea and started understanding it. And suddenly, because the strongest people aren't the ones who refuse to bend, they're the ones who move with the current, letting it take them where they were meant to go all along. And when you master this, when you learn to release control, stop forcing, and simply allow life to happen, you will find a power far greater than resistance. A power that doesn't fight the storm, but becomes the wind itself. Now, here's something just as crucial: timing. Because even when you learn to let go, knowing when to act is just as important as knowing when to surrender. 2. Nature's wisdom. A man once found a butterfly struggling to escape its cocoon. It twisted, turned, and pushed against the shell that held it captive. Watching it struggle, the man felt sympathy. He took a small pair of scissors and carefully cut an opening, making the butterfly's escape easier. But something was wrong. The butterfly emerged, its wings weak and underdeveloped. It tried to fly, but it couldn't. What the man didn't realize was that the struggle was necessary. The resistance inside the cocoon wasn't a punishment, it was a process. The butterfly needed to push against the walls, to strengthen its wings, to prepare for flight. By taking away the struggle, the man had unknowingly taken away its ability to soar. You've felt this before. You've wanted to speed things up. Success, healing, relationships. You've wished the hard part away, thinking that if only things happened faster, you'd be happier. But rushing the process doesn't create results. It weakens them. Everything has its time. Growth cannot be forced. There was a moment in your life when impatience got the best of you. Maybe you jumped into a relationship that wasn't ready. Maybe you pushed too hard in a business that wasn't stable. Maybe you rushed to prove yourself before you were prepared. And in the end, Things collapsed because they weren't given time to form properly. Nature has been teaching this lesson for centuries. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. Never be in a hurry. Do everything quietly and in a calm spirit. He knew that life, like nature, follows its own timeline. The impatient farmer digs up his seeds, wondering why they haven't sprouted yet. The wise farmer trusts the seasons. A young entrepreneur once believed he could outpace time. He had a vision, talent, and the drive to succeed. But he lacked one thing: patience. He wanted success immediately. He expanded too fast, took on more than he could handle, and built something that looked impressive but had no solid foundation. At first, everything seemed to be working. The numbers were up, the opportunities were coming in, but beneath the surface, cracks were forming. His team was overwhelmed and his operations were unstable. And when the pressure finally became too much, the whole thing collapsed. Sitting in the wreckage of his dream, he met an old businessman, someone who had built a company that lasted decades. He asked, "Where did I go wrong?" The man smiled. "You planted a seed and demanded it become a tree overnight." There was nothing wrong with his ambition. The problem was his impatience. You see this everywhere. People rushed into love only to realize the foundation wasn't there. People force success before they're ready, only to crumble under the weight of their own expectations. People try to skip the hard part, only to end up weaker because of it. But the truth is, every great thing requires time. A relationship that is rushed lacks depth. A career that moves too fast collapses under its own weight. And a life that is lived in a constant state of impatience misses the beauty of unfolding naturally. It's easy to look at someone else's success and wonder, why not me? Why is my journey taking longer? But what you don't see is the years of preparation, the silent struggles, the failures they endured before things fell into place. What looks like overnight success is often the result of years of work happening beneath the surface. Epictetus reminds us, no great thing is created suddenly. He knew that struggle isn't the enemy, it's the preparation. If you feel behind, if you feel like things aren't happening fast enough, step back. Maybe life isn't holding you back. Maybe it's preparing you. Some lessons can't be skipped. Some foundations take time to set. And the moment you stop fighting the timeline, the moment you trust the process, things begin to fall into place. Imagine you're planting a tree. You water it every day, give it the best soil, and make sure it gets sunlight. But no matter how much effort you put in, it won't grow overnight. You can't rush it. If you try to pull the stem upward, hoping it will get taller faster, you'll only break it. The best thing you can do is keep nurturing it and trust that growth is happening, even if you don't see it yet. You are no different. Your success, your relationships, your personal growth, they all need time to develop. Instead of stressing over how long it's taking, focus on building your foundation. Make sure your roots are strong so that when the time comes, you're ready. The impatient ones, the ones who force things before their time, are the ones who crumble. The ones who trust and who put in the work without demanding instant results are the ones who thrive. So, if you find yourself wondering why things aren't happening fast enough, pause. Ask yourself, am I the butterfly trying to escape before I'm strong enough to fly? Am I the entrepreneur building something before I'm ready to handle it? Because what's meant for you will happen. Not because you force it, but because you become ready for it. 3. Letting go. You hold on. You grip tighter. You refuse to let go, because deep down you believe that if you try just a little harder, things will change. If you fight a little longer, they'll turn in your favor. But the harder you hold on, the more resistance you create. You cling to relationships that no longer serve you. You chase opportunities that have already slipped away. You refuse to accept that some things are simply not meant to be forced. And so, you suffer. Not because of what's happening, but because of your refusal to release control. Imagine you're holding a thick rope, pulling with all your strength. On the other end, something resists. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, a version of yourself you refuse to outgrow. You pull harder, your hands burning from the friction, your muscles aching. But no matter how much you fight, the rope won't budge. Then a thought comes. What happens if I let go? So, you loosen your grip. Instantly, the pain stops. The tension disappears. The battle you've been fighting is over. not because you won or lost, but because you chose to stop engaging in a fight that was never yours to win. This is what happens when you finally let go. You've felt this before. The moment you walked away from something that was draining you and suddenly life felt lighter. The moment you stopped chasing approval and finally peace found you. The moment you surrendered control, things fell into place on their own. Stoicism teaches that attachment to what we cannot control is the root of suffering. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." But most people live as if everything is up to them, as if they can force life into submission through sheer effort. But the truth is, the things that are meant for you will stay without you having to grip them with desperation. And the things that are not meant for you will slip away, no matter how tightly you hold on. Yet we resist. We convince ourselves that if we just try harder, love more, and fix more, we can make things work. But what we fail to see is that forcing something to stay doesn't make it right. It just makes it more painful. A man once built a sandcastle near the shore. He spent hours shaping every tower, carving every detail, making it perfect. But as the tide began to rise, the waves crept closer. The sand started to shift beneath his fingers. Panic set in. He worked faster, trying to reinforce the walls, trying to stop the inevitable. But the ocean doesn't ask for permission. Wave after wave, the castle crumbled. And then, something changed. He stopped resisting. He sat back and watched as the water took away what was never meant to last. For the first time, he realized he had been trying to keep something permanent in a world that is constantly changing. We do this all the time. We build our castles, relationships, careers, identities, and when life starts shifting them, we fight. We try to keep things the same, even when they're meant to evolve. But nothing in life is truly ours to keep. A woman once loved a man who had already left her in every way except physically. She knew it was over, but she couldn't accept it. She held on, made excuses, ignored the signs. She convinced herself that if she just proved her worth, he would stay. And so she tried everything. She changed herself. She poured more love into a cup that would never be full. But the harder she held on, the further he drifted. Until one day she realized she was chasing a ghost. She let go, not out of anger, not out of weakness, but because she finally understood that love cannot be forced, only given freely. For the first time in years, she felt free. This is what happens when you stop forcing what isn't meant for you, when you stop holding on to something that is already gone, when you finally trust that what is meant to be yours will never require you to fight for it. People think letting go means giving up. They think surrender means losing. But in reality, letting go is an act of power. It is choosing yourself over a battle that drains you. It is choosing peace over attachment. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If something is in your control, take action. If it's not, let it go." There is no wisdom in forcing something that is meant to leave. No honor in chasing what is already walking away. The strongest people are not the ones who hold on the longest. They are the ones who know when to release. A clenched fist can't receive anything new. An open hand can. So the next time you feel yourself gripping onto something that is resisting you, ask yourself, what happens if I let go? Because the moment you do, you'll realize you were never meant to force life. You were meant to flow with it. 4. Balancing action and acceptance. A man pulls back the string of a bow, his target locked in sight. He steadies his breath, focuses on his aim, and then he releases. The arrow cuts through the air, swift and precise, but once it leaves his grip, it is no longer in his control. The wind may shift, the target may move, or an unexpected obstacle may alter its path. But none of that matters now. His role was to aim and release. The rest? That belongs to something beyond him. This is how life works. You prepare, you put in the effort, you do everything within your power. But at some point, you must let go of control and allow things to unfold. Yet, most people struggle with this. They overthink, overcorrect, and try to control every step of the outcome. They shoot the arrow, but instead of trusting the process, they run after it, trying to guide it midair. But no matter how much you chase, you cannot control what is already set in motion. There was once a boxer who had spent years training for the biggest fight of his life. He had disciplined his body, sharpened his technique, and studied his opponent relentlessly. But as the fight began, something unexpected happened. His opponent fought differently than he had anticipated. His strategies weren't working. Every punch he threw seemed to miss. Panic set in. His mind raced, trying to force his plan into reality. But the more he tried to control the fight, the worse it got. His movements became stiff, his reactions slow. He was losing, not because he lacked skill, but because he was too rigid to adapt to the reality in front of him. Between rounds, his coach leaned in and said, "You're fighting the fight you planned, not the fight that's happening." At that moment, he understood. He had been clinging to a script that no longer existed. When the next round started, he let go of his preconceived plan. He stopped forcing his strategy and started flowing with the fight. He read his opponent in real time, adapted to the moment, and moved with precision instead of desperation. By the end of the fight, he stood victorious. Not because he overpowered his opponent, but because he let go of control and responded to reality as it was, not as he wished it to be. This is what it means to balance action with acceptance. Stoicism teaches that effort and surrender are not opposites, they are partners. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not be overheard complaining that life is hard. Instead say, I am training to accept what is beyond my control." You do everything in your power, but you also accept that some factors are not yours to dictate. You plant the seeds, but you do not demand when they bloom. You practice, you prepare, but you do not fear the unexpected. You move with life, not against it. Most people get this wrong. They either push too hard, resisting reality, or they give up entirely, refusing to act at all. But wisdom lies in the balance, knowing when to push forward and when to step back. A businessman once tried to force a deal. He had spent months negotiating, controlling every aspect of the process, making sure every term benefited him. But the other party was hesitant, and instead of allowing space for things to develop, he applied more pressure. The deal collapsed. Later, he met a seasoned investor who had been in the industry for decades. The businessman asked, "What should I have done differently?" The investor replied, "You held on to the deal like a man clinging to a rope in a storm. Instead of securing your grip, you should have let the wind carry it to where it was meant to go." Opportunities, relationships, and even personal growth work the same way. Some things require persistence. Others require acceptance. And the key is knowing which is which. Imagine you are trying to tame a wild horse. If you pull too hard on the reins, the horse fights back, resists, and might even throw you off. But if you let go completely, it runs off, uncontrollably. The solution? Hold firmly, but with flexibility. You guide, but you don't force. You direct, but you don't demand. You do your part, and then you allow life to do its part. The strongest people aren't the ones who grip control the hardest. They are the ones who understand when to step back, when to let things settle, and when to trust that their efforts will take root in the right way, at the right time. So the next time you feel yourself pushing too hard, trying to control something beyond your reach, ask yourself, have I aimed and released? Have I done my part? And if so, can I now let life take over? 5. Detachment in relationships. A hand that squeezes too tightly ends up crushing what it holds. A relationship that is controlled, forced, or clung to out of fear does not thrive. It suffocates. You've seen it before. Someone desperately trying to hold on to a relationship, controlling every detail, clinging to certainty, terrified of losing what they have. But love, trust, and connection cannot be controlled. The harder you hold on, the more it slips through your fingers. A healthy relationship is built on trust, not possession. It grows in space, not in chains. But many people don't understand this. They mistake control for care, attachment for love, and fear of loss for loyalty. And so they grip tighter. They demand constant reassurance. They force conversations, push for validation, and refuse to accept when the natural rhythm of a relationship changes. But life moves in cycles. People evolve, priorities shift, and not everything is meant to last forever. Stoicism teaches that suffering comes from attachment to what is impermanent. Epictetus said, "When giving your child or friend a kiss, remind yourself that they are mortal, and something could take them away, not to distress you, but to help you love them fully, without fear." At first, this may seem harsh, but it isn't about pushing people away. It's about loving without chains, about accepting that relationships, like seasons, will change, and that trying to freeze them in place only creates pain. There was once a man who loved deeply but feared loss more than anything. He needed constant reassurance that his partner wouldn't leave. Every time she needed space, he saw it as a threat. If she was quiet, he assumed she was pulling away. If she had an independent thought, he took it as a rejection. Slowly, his fear became control. He monitored, questioned, and doubted. His insecurity turned love into a cage, and in trying to keep her close, he unknowingly pushed her away. Until one day, she left, not because she stopped loving him, but because she could no longer breathe. What he failed to see was that real connection isn't about control, it's about freedom. Love flourishes when it's given space to exist freely, not when it's gripped out of fear. A river does not ask the land to hold it still. It flows, and the land that allows it to move naturally benefits from its presence. But if the land tries to trap the river, blocking its movement, the water stagnates, overflows, and eventually finds another path. This is true for relationships, friendships, and even family bonds. Love is not something you own. It is something you experience. Imagine a bird landing in your hand. If you let it sit freely, it may stay, enjoying your presence. But the moment you grab it, squeeze it, try to hold it in place, it panics. It desperately wants to escape. This is what happens when you try to control relationships instead of letting them breathe. There was a woman who had a best friend for years. They were inseparable. They shared everything. But as time passed, life took them in different directions. The friend had less time, new priorities, and a different pace. Instead of accepting this, she resisted. She demanded the same closeness they once had, forced conversations, and filled every silence with questions. But the more she pushed, the more distant her friend became. One day, she stopped fighting. She let the friendship be what it naturally was, instead of trying to force it into what it used to be. And something surprising happened. Her friend came back, not out of guilt, but because there was no space for real connection again. Stoicism reminds us that what is meant for us does not need to be chased. What stays, stays naturally. What leaves was never ours to hold on to. Trying to control relationships creates tension, but trust creates flow. If someone needs space, give it. If someone moves in a different direction, let them. If something is real, it will return in its own way, in its own time. A clenched fist holds nothing. An open hand invites everything. So when you feel yourself gripping too tightly to a relationship, when fear makes you cling instead of connect, ask yourself, am I holding on to this because it's thriving, or because I'm afraid of losing it? Because real connection doesn't need to be forced. It needs to be free, purposeful action. A river never rushes. It carves its path over time, moving with patience, shaping the land effortlessly. It does not force its way through solid rock in a single moment, yet over years, it transforms landscapes. A calm mind works the same way. It achieves more, not by frantic, desperate effort, but by consistent, purposeful action. People often mistake ambition for speed. They think success is about moving fast, achieving quickly, and checking off goals at a record pace. But in their rush, they make mistakes, burn out, and find themselves exhausted instead of fulfilled. You see this in the man who chases wealth without a plan, jumping from one business idea to the next, hoping for quick results. Or in the person who forces personal growth, trying to master everything at once, only to become overwhelmed and discouraged. Stoicism teaches that true power comes from direction, not haste. Seneca wrote, "A man who hurries through life hurries to his death." He understood that a well-paced journey is stronger than a reckless sprint. A sculptor does not hack wildly at the stone, trying to reveal a masterpiece in minutes. He moves deliberately, removing unnecessary parts and shaping with precision. The same applies to everything we pursue. If you rush, you ruin. There was a man who wanted success more than anything. He set ambitious goals, made strict schedules, and worked tirelessly. But no matter how hard he pushed, it never seemed enough. Every time he reached one goal, he was already chasing the next. His mind was never at peace. He wasn't moving forward. He was just running in circles. One day, he visited a mentor, a man who had built an empire, yet lived with deep calm. Frustrated, he asked, "How do you succeed without constantly pushing? I work harder than anyone, yet I feel like I'm stuck." The mentor smiled and said, "You are trying to sprint through a marathon. He then took out 2 candles, one new, one burned halfway. He lit both. The first, full of wax, burned steadily, giving off a strong, bright flame. The second, though already half spent, flickered weakly, struggling to stay alive. Both provide light, the mentor said, but one has energy to last while the other is barely holding on. The difference isn't effort, it's pace. For the first time, the man understood. His problem wasn't a lack of work, it was a lack of balance. You've probably felt this too. You push yourself to the limit, believing that if you slow down, you'll fall behind. You work harder and take on more, but in the process, you sacrifice peace, clarity, and even the very success you seek. But what if slowing down is the very thing that makes you more effective? A steady mind makes better decisions. A rested body moves with more strength. A focused effort achieves more than scattered energy. People often chase the illusion of productivity, believing that busyness equals progress. But progress is about movement in the right direction, not movement in all directions. There was once a hunter who needed to hit his target. He was strong, his bow was powerful, his arrows sharp, but he had one flaw: he was impatient. Instead of aiming carefully, he fired rapidly, sending arrow after arrow flying off course. His targets remained untouched, and his frustration grew. Beside him, another hunter waited. He did not rush. He pulled back his bowstring, locked onto his target, steadied his breath, and only then he released. One shot, one clean hit. The first hunter wasted 10 arrows. The second needed only 1. This is how life works. It's not about how much you do, but how well you do it. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Not out of laziness, but because fewer, more intentional actions create a greater impact. When you slow down, you make better choices instead of rushing into mistakes. Conserve energy for what truly matters. Find joy in the process instead of just the outcome. A great builder does not hammer wildly. He measures and places each piece carefully, ensuring that what he creates lasts. The same applies to your ambitions, your work, your relationships. The goal is not to rush toward an empty finish line. It is to build something meaningful, something that stands the test of time. So if you ever feel like you're running but not arriving anywhere, ask yourself, am I aiming or am I just shooting wildly? Because the most powerful action isn't the fastest, it's the most intentional. 7. Flexibility over rigidity. A tree that refuses to bend in a storm is the first to snap. A rigid mind, unwilling to adapt, is the first to suffer. People believe that strength comes from standing firm, from refusing to yield. But real strength comes from knowing when to hold your ground and when to move with the forces around you. Life does not care about your plans. It does not adjust itself to fit your expectations. If you try to fight reality, you will lose. If you refuse to adjust when circumstances shift, you will break. You've seen this before. The person who clings to a failed business because they are too proud to pivot, the man who refuses to leave a toxic relationship because he cannot admit it's over, the woman who insists on a path that no longer serves her simply because she has already invested so much into it. And so they struggle, not because life is cruel, but because they refuse to flow with it. Stoicism teaches that suffering comes from attachment to how we think things should be. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." This is the key. Resisting reality creates pain, and adapting to it creates freedom. A man once built a small business from nothing. He spent years perfecting his craft, mastering his product, and building a loyal customer base. Then the world changed. Technology evolved. New competitors entered the market. His business model, once successful, was no longer relevant. But he refused to change. He insisted that his way was the best way. He ignored the signs, dismissed new ideas, and stuck to the past. And so his business collapsed. Later, he met an old entrepreneur, someone who had weathered decades of change, yet remained successful. Frustrated, he asked, "How did you survive when so many others failed?" The man replied, "I did not fight the current. I learned to swim in it." In life, you are either rigid or adaptable. You either fight the inevitable or you use it to your advantage. A river does not curse the rocks in its way. It does not try to push them aside. It flows around them, shaping a new path. A martial artist does not meet force with force. He redirects his opponent's energy, using it against them. A great leader does not resist change. He moves with it, seeing opportunity where others see obstacles. Rigidity is not strength, it is fragility disguised as power. There was once a fisherman who had spent years mastering the sea. He knew the tides, the currents, the best times to set sail. But one day, an unexpected storm hit. The younger fishermen panicked. They fought against the wind, forced their sails in the wrong direction, and resisted the storm's power. One by one, their boats capsized. But the older fisherman did something different. He lowered his sails, adjusted his course, and let the storm carry him instead of fighting it. When the winds finally calmed, he was the only one who remained afloat. Because he understood something the others did not, you cannot fight the forces of nature. You can only learn to move with them. The same applies to your life. Your plans will not always go as expected. People will change. Opportunities will come and go. If you remain rigid, demanding that things happen on your terms, refusing to adjust, you will suffer. But if you remain flexible, open, and willing to pivot when necessary, you will always find a way forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your strength is not in controlling life. It is in controlling how you respond to it. Imagine trying to ski down a mountain. If you fight against gravity, stiffening your body, and trying to force control, you will fall hard. But if you learn to shift your weight, bend your knees, and move with the slope instead of against it, you glide down with ease. Life works the same way. Every obstacle, every setback, every challenge is part of the landscape. If you resist, if you try to control what cannot be controlled, you will crash. But if you move with the circumstances, if you adapt, adjust, and let go of unnecessary resistance, you keep going. This is the difference between those who struggle endlessly and those who move through life with grace. So the next something doesn't go as planned, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead ask, "How can I move with this? How can I turn this into something useful?" Because the ones who thrive in life are not the ones who resist change. They are the ones who embrace it, adapt, and move forward without breaking. 8. The power of stillness. A lion does not roar before it strikes. A warrior does not flinch before the battle. The strongest forces in nature do not rush. They wait, they observe, and they choose their moment. But in today's world, people mistake stillness for weakness. They think action is always the answer, and that movement equals progress. They react impulsively, they chase every opportunity, and they speak when silence would have served them better. And in doing so, they lose their power. True strength does not come from reacting to every situation. It comes from knowing when to act and when to be still. A mind that is calm sees clearly. A person who is centered moves with purpose. When you learn to embrace stillness, you gain something most people never have: control over yourself, rather than being controlled by the world around you. There was once a man who wanted to achieve greatness. He worked tirelessly, always chasing the next goal, always moving. But no matter how hard he worked, success seemed to slip through his fingers. Frustrated, he sought out a mentor, an old monk who had lived high in the mountains for decades. He climbed the long path to the temple, eager for wisdom. When he arrived, he immediately began talking, explaining his struggles, his ambitions, his frustrations. He asked question after question, demanding answers. The monk said nothing. Instead, he poured tea into the man's cup. He kept pouring, even when the cup was full, until the tea spilled over the edges. The man finally shouted, "Stop! The cup is full." The monk looked at him and said, "Exactly. How can I teach you anything when your mind is already overflowing?" For the first time, the man understood. His constant movement, his endless chasing, his desperate need for more, it was blinding him. He had never stopped long enough to listen, to reflect, to allow wisdom to come to him. Stillness is not emptiness. It is where clarity begins. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic emperors, ruled an empire in chaos, yet he wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." He understood that even in the middle of battle, even with an empire on his shoulders, his greatest strength came not from aggression but from inner stillness. In life, people are quick to react. Someone insults them and they lash out. A challenge appears and they rush in blindly. A decision needs to be made and they act without thinking. But the strongest minds do not react, they respond. There was once a samurai known for his unbeatable skill. One day, a young challenger approached, full of arrogance. The challenger insulted him, mocked him, and did everything he could to provoke a fight. But the samurai did not move. He did not react. He stood in perfect silence, unshaken. After hours of taunting, the young challenger finally gave up and left. The samurai's student asked, "Why did you not fight?" The samurai replied, "When someone offers you a gift and you refuse it, who does the gift belong to?" The student thought for a moment, then answered, "The person who offered it." The samurai nodded. The same is true for anger, for insult, for anything someone tries to give you. If you do not accept it, it still belongs to them. This is the power of stillness. It is not a weakness. It is the ultimate control. When you pause before reacting, you give yourself time to see clearly. You do not let emotions dictate your actions. You do not let outside forces pull you in every direction. Stillness is a weapon. It allows you to think before you speak so you do not regret your words. Act with precision so you do not waste energy on the wrong things. Stay calm in chaos so you make the best decisions when others panic. A mountain does not tremble when the wind blows. A wise man does not crumble when life tests him. And the one who controls his own mind, he controls everything. So when life demands an immediate reaction from you, pause. When the world pushes you to move without thinking, stand still. Because in stillness, you will find something most people never have. Absolute power over yourself. You have a choice. Every day, in every situation, you can force, resist, and fight. Or you can adapt, flow, and trust. Life does not move in straight lines. It twists, turns, rises, and falls. But the more you try to control everything, the more you demand certainty, force outcomes, and hold on to what no longer serves you, the more frustration and suffering you create. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that true power lies in knowing what is within your control and surrendering what is not. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means freeing yourself from unnecessary struggle. Instead of clinging to relationships that no longer bring peace, trust that space will reveal their true nature. Instead of forcing success through blind effort, move with purpose and patience. Instead of reacting to every challenge, practice stillness, so that when you do act, you act with wisdom. Nothing in nature forces itself. The river does not push against the rock, it finds a way around it. The tree does not demand the sun to shine, it grows steadily, knowing its time will come. And you? You are no different. Every day, practice flow over force, trust over fear, patience over panic. Observe where you resist life and ask yourself, what happens if I let go? You may find that when you stop chasing, what is meant for you starts arriving. Now I ask you, where in your life have you been forcing something that isn't working? Share your story in the comments below. Let's grow together.